Kiyotaka Ayanokoji begins attending school in Class 1D at the Tokyo Metropolitan Advanced Nurturing High School, an institution established by the government for training Japan's best students. Class D homeroom teacher S.A. Chabashira explains the point system where everybody gets a monthly allowance of 100,000 points that they can use as money at local shops with 1 point equaling 1 yen, and also warns the students that they are judged on merit. Kiyotaka begins navigating through the system, being careful about how he spends his points while becoming friends with the gregarious Kikayo Kushida and then attempting to become friends with the aloof outsider Suzune Horikita. In an attempt to become friends, Kiyotaka brings Suzune to a cafe where only girls meet, having secretly arranged for Kikayo and 4 other classmates to be there, but Suzune sees through their plan and leaves. As the month of April passes, the majority of Class D lavishly spends their points and slacks off in class without any reprimand, causing Kiyotaka to be suspicious. On May 1st, the D-class students are surprised to find out that they did not get an allowance, and SAE explains that their allowance depends on merit, and, having ignored their studies, the class receives no points for the month. Issei Chabashira explains how the system works at this school, as the 4 first-year classes are all ranked by merit, and that D class has the opportunity to be promoted to C class should they perform exceptionally well on exams. She also warns them that, with the current situation, anyone who fails one more exam will be expelled. Now fully aware of the system, everybody is taking their studies more seriously except for the 3 biggest idiots of the class, Ken Sudo, Kanji Ike, and Haruki Yamachi. Suzune Horikita treats Kiyotaka Ayanokoji to an expensive lunch to discuss the strategy, as well as bringing aboard the 3 idiots to the library to study. Kiyotaka and Kikayo Kushida succeed in getting them to come, but they leave immediately while Ken lets everybody know that he wants to make it rich quickly by going pro in basketball. That night, Kiyotaka goes out for a drink and overhears Suzune talking to her older brother Manabu Horikita, the student council president, as Manabu tries to attack her over a disagreement about her view of isolation being independence, which caused her placement in Class D. Kiyotaka then intervenes, and after dodging several of Manabu's strikes, nimbly with ease, impressing him as he questions the fighting style martial art, he studies only to get a vague answer. Manabu then remembers who Kiyotaka is, as he reveals that he scored a 50 on his entry exams and recent quiz before he asks if it was intentional, but Kiyotaka replies that it was just coincidence. Manabu voices his surprise that his sister made a friend, but she denies as she doesn't need such a thing, where he voices his disappointment on her mindset before leaving. Suzune and Kiyotaka speak with each other as she awkwardly apologizes to him for her earlier state, but he shrugs it off as if it were nothing. She soon remarks about his martial art fighting proficiency, as he answers that he used to do non-martial arts activities, like tea ceremonies, before Suzune reminded him that he contradicted his previous statement where he said that he did piano and calligraphy, which he agreed to that as well. She questions him on her brother's earlier query on whether he intentionally got the same exact half scores each time, but he doesn't give her a clear answer. Suzune then remarks that everything about him is a mystery, in which he asks her if she was really done with the study group, which she confirms, stating those who fail doesn't concern her. Kiyotaka soon inquires on whether if it was this distant and cold behavior personality of hers that got her placed in Class D, but she couldn't answer it. The midterm exams come, and Class D as a whole performs very well, with some scoring among the highest among the first years in the school. Class D gets the results of their last exam and everybody passes except for Ken, who missed the passing threshold by 1 point. It is revealed that the grades were the result of Kiyotaka spending 15,000 points to buy the questions to an old exam from an upperclassman 3 days prior to the exam, which is within school rules. On one of those days, Kiyotaka goes to invite Ken Sudo to the group, but finds him being provoked by students of Class C. When Ken tries to attack, he is grabbed by 2 of them, as the leader Kakeru Ruin approaches, saying he knows Ken will fail the test, being expelled. As he gestures what appears to be an attack, Ken gets scared and flinches as Kakeru simply flicks him on the head, amused by his fear. As he tries to continue his torture, Hanami Ikenos intervenes, telling all of them to stop what they are doing as Kakeru tries to say it was self-defense, but she threw it. She tells them to stop or she'll call security on them for fighting on school grounds if they don't comply, which causes them to let Ken go and leave. Ken is angered by his rescue and tries to get revenge on them, but Kiyotaka and Hanami quickly tell him to let it go. Hanami calms the spectators before leaving as Kiyotaka asks Ken to join the study group, but he refuses and goes to basketball practice. Kiyotaka approaches Sae asking the question of whether equality exists, and she answers that it does not, which Kiyotaka agrees with. Kiyotaka then offers to pay her with his points so Ken will not be expelled, to which she accepts but wants 100,000 points in exchange. Unable to pay such a price, Kiyotaka's offer is joined by Suzune, who offers 50,000 points with Kiyotaka's own 50,000 to buy the missing point from the teacher so that Ken's expulsion can be rescinded. Amused by this, Sae voices her earlier belief that the current Class D would interest her, and what they are doing is proving her point about. With this, she accepts their offer and tells them to inform Ken he is not going to be expelled after all. That night, Kikayo organizes a little party to celebrate in Kiyotaka's room, to his dismay. As everyone enjoys themselves, Kikayo asks if Kiyotaka helped Ken out, as the latter and the others stop their activities and look to see if this was true, but he casts the credit to Suzune, who is barely able to explain. After the party, Kikayo leaves, but forgets her cell phone, and Kiyotaka follows her to give it back, only to find out the truth about her personality before his view of this is revealed to her. Having discovered her secret personality, Kikayo demands Kiyotaka to keep it a secret or else, and using the fingerprints as evidence. He says he won't tell and asks to be released as she lets go of his hand. Kiyotaka thinks back to his previous encounters with her bubbly persona, wondering if it was all an act, and if this person he is seeing was the real Kikayo all along. Kikayo then asks if she can truly trust him in not telling anyone about what he saw, which he promises to hide from anyone. She says that she will hold him to that as she takes a deep breath and returns to her bubbly self, stating they have another secret, just as he internally wonders who she really is. In Class 1B, the scores of a recent quiz are given out, and the class head did well, with some thanking Hanami Ikenos for her tutoring, while she internally voices her desire for the whole class to reach Class 1A. Sometime later, Kiyotaka reflects on his recent meeting Kikayo as he goes to the elevator and sees Kikayo with Suzune, who is still distant towards her. Kikayo speaks to him as he recalls her previous actions before conversing with Suzune over them being together. As Suzune states, she didn't have a choice before the elevator stops and she leaves. Kikayo voices disappointment that Suzune didn't want to walk to school with her before Hanami appears happily greeting Kikayo before she meets Kiyotaka. After a brief discussion about his relationship with Kikayo, she asks if they received their points, but the two can't answer. July 1st arrives and D-class point distribution is put on hold due to an incident the previous day involving Ken Sudo and 3 students of C-class, with 2 of them being his basketball teammates. Ken was attacked and fought back in self-defense, but unless the class can find a witness to clear his name before the hearing next week, Ken will be liable for his actions, resulting in the class receiving no points for the month. One day, Hanami asks Kiyotaka for help as she tells him that she might get asked out on a date. Kiyotaka is confused as she explains that she is inexperienced in romantic situations and needs him to pretend to be her boyfriend in order to avoid hurting the feelings of a person who sent her a love letter, as she doesn't feel that way. When he refuses and questions this, Hanami begs him as she can't hurt the person that is revealed to be her friend Chihiro Shiranami, who arrives and sees them. Chihiro asks who Kiyotaka is as he pieces things together while Hanami introduces him to her. Teary-eyed, Chihiro questions if he is her boyfriend, which Hanami tries to confirm, but Kiyotaka states he is simply a friend, to the girl's shock. Kiyotaka tells Hanami to be honest about her feelings to Chihiro, who he notes struggled to muster up the courage to express her feelings to her, as she seems to consider his advice. Kiyotaka then notes that it is not his place to talk about, as he takes his leave while the girls talk to each other. Moments later, Kiyotaka is seen looking through his phone and sees he still hasn't received any points. Very soon, Chihiro is seen crying as she runs off, while Hanami appears and Kiyotaka questions her over what occurred. Hanami revealed that she told Chihiro she wasn't interested in her, but they promised to try to go to being friends the next day and states she hopes they can, as Kiyotaka says it depends on them. Hanami apologizes to Kiyotaka for dragging him into the mess, but he shrugs it off as nothing too bizarre, while she notes this means that she owes him a favor. The class posts messages asking for witnesses to the incident, and Class B joins in after Hanami wished to repay Kiyotaka, to his classmates' curiosity. After she and her classmate Ruji Kanzaki revealed that an anonymous person who gave clues about the past of Daichai Ishizaki, Kiyotaka helped Hanami on giving points to the person, but he notices something on her phone before she quickly takes her back as she and Ruji leave. Kiyotaka reflects on what he saw, which was her large amount of points, and wonders how Ikenos attained so much points. It turns out that their classmate Eri Sakura was there and captured the incident with her camera. That night, Kiyotaka and Kikayo talk about how in a murder case with the suspects being a known murderer and a law-abiding citizen, that with a lack of evidence, people are more likely going to listen to the law-abiding citizen, even if that person is the one who committed the crime. The next day, Eri is approached asking for the evidence, and she runs away, dropping her camera in the process. Eri asks Kiyotaka and Kikayo to accompany her to the electronics store to get the camera repaired, which is covered under warranty. The store clerk, Yukitsu, asks for Eri to give out her contact information, though she is too nervous, and Kiyotaka uses his information instead. Afterwards, the trio sit and talk. Kikayo then goes to freshen up as Kiyotaka is left alone with Eri. After a brief silence, she talks about what she should do as he tells her not to burden herself with a decision she'll regret. These encouraging words cause Eri to blush and stare at him for a while before Kikayo returns and three split, though Kikayo asks to visit Kiyotaka at his room later. At the dorms, Kikayo and Kiyotaka see pictures of Eri and figure out that she was an internet model that has become a big hit recently, just before she calls Kikayo and says she will help in the case. At the hearing presided by Manabu, both classes give their testimonies accusing each other for instigating the fight, with the initial ruling going in Class C's favor. After staying silent out of fear at her brother's presence, Suzune speaks up after getting tickled by Kiyotaka to regain her reason. Suzune asks what the circumstances were for the fight and points out that in a 3-against-1 fight that it is nearly impossible for those injuries that serious to be all Ken's doing. She then presents Eri as a witness, providing evidence that she was present as she captured the fight going on in the background during a photo shoot. However, the evidence only proves that she was present and does not clear Sudo of any wrongdoing. The Class C homeroom teacher Sakagami proposes a compromise to suspend Sudo for 2 weeks and the 3 Class C students for 1 week each, but Class D rejects it, resulting in an argument that's soon broken up by Manabu. Realizing that one side is clearly lying, Manabu ends the hearing and will make his decision the next day unless admissions or additional evidence is presented, with expulsions possible. Kiyotaka then speaks with Eri about her late admission while she apologizes for taking so long. He tells her input was good in helping the case. Manabu and his secretary walk out to see them, as Manabu stated he expected a strategy from Kiyotaka and Suzune, but Kiyotaka shrugs this off. When he focuses his attention to Eri, he makes hint of her words being lies, but Kiyotaka defends her by voicing his belief in her words. Manabu then tries to strike Kiyotaka, but he swiftly dodges as Eri and Akane are surprised by the event. Manabu asks Kiyotaka if he can prove Eri right, as he tells him that was good question and he'll have to wait to see the answer. A monologue of the life of Eri Sakura goes on with some detailing why she chooses not to get involved with others. The others are letters from an obsessed person who proclaims their love for her due to the pictures she places on the internet, which scares her. Suzune Horikita and Kiyotaka Ayanokoji. The boys question why the council hasn't brought this up, but Kiyotaka's statement that they do and are just waiting to see what the students are planning as a test. The boys are fearful at the thought of being expelled, but Kiyotaka tells them there is a way for both classes to walk away as they disbelieve it. But Suzune points out if they simply withdraw their accusations, everyone would be safe. The leader Daichi Ishizaki considers it and tries to make a call to someone, but Suzune knocks away the phone, calling him pathetic for being a person's pawn. He gets angry and grabs, but she points out the cameras still in the area and the begging of his friends. He relents and decides to withdraw his accusation. Elsewhere, Eri is walking through the school store and feels that someone is following her and tries to elude them, but the person continues following her, to her fear. Meanwhile, Kiyotaka is talking to Hanami, promising to repay her for intentions, and expresses amazement at his intelligence, wondering how he is in Class D. But he states consequences of his actions as the man tries to run off, but Hanami blocks him off, having brought security, and the man is apprehended. After Hanami and the guards take the now crying man away from the scene, Kiyotaka speaks with Eri. He explains he found her by using the tracker on his cell phone to find her signal, calling it fortuitous they exchanged contact information. She apologizes for dragging him into the mess as she was unable to do anything, but he tells her that her life as an idol may bring about such drama. Eri discards her glasses and tells Kiyotaka that she will live a life without lies, as he tells her not to let any situation burden her and to ask him for advice as he sticks out his hand to help her up. Touched him on this news as Ken questions whether Suzune had a hand in the matter, to which Kiyotaka considers a possibility. Ken calls her actions amazing before he leaves for basketball practice, as Kiyotaka looks on Class D, which is a class meant for defectives of the school. Sae voices that she believes he is the most defective of the students, as there are students. He ends with his declaration. Meanwhile, Kiyotaka and Suzune walk together in the rain as Suzune asks him if he manipulated all the events that transpired, overcompensating as she brings up the promise he made to help her reach class, as he reminds her that she had forced, but she states that he wouldn't have helped if that were true. Kiyotaka states he was looking out for a friend, but she disregards this and pressures him into revealing his past and identity. Her words cause Kiyotaka reflect. Suzune Horikita continues to study inside her dorm room through summer vacation. Kiyotaka Ayanokoji repeatedly calls her, asking her to go to the pool, and she reluctantly agrees to do so. On the night before, a group of D-class students that consists of Kiyotaka, Ken Sudo, Kanji Ike, Haruki Yamachi, and the ringleader Hideo Satomura meet up to discuss preparations for peeping on the girls while in the changing room at the pool. During the trip to the pool, Suzune finds her analyzing the many people around her. In one instance, several of the girls discussed their relationships with Kiyotaka, with Kikayo Kushida commenting, "He seems popular now," as Suzune ignores this. Meanwhile, Hideo observes the boys from the school's general storehouse while communicating with the boys using a transceiver and hand signals. After everybody has changed into their swimsuits, Haruki sneaks into the women's changing room as a janitor to secretly install the cameras under the guise of closing it for cleaning, but has trouble doing so, forcing Hideo to change the plans. Kanji goes in and installs them instead, as Kakeru, Ryuen, and students from C class approach the changing room while Kanji is still in. Needing help to escape, Ken comes to the entrance of the changing room to confront Kakeru in order to stall for time while students from class had arrived to start a fight. Manabu arrives and lets everybody know that even though they are engaging in leisurely activities, they are still on school grounds, with Hideo alerting Kiyotaka, who was aware of the plan about the situation. Kiyotaka asks Suzune to stand on top of a diving platform to give a speech about D-class ascending to a class someday despite the numerous defects the students have. With the students distracted, Kanji escapes the changing room unnoticed. Shortly afterward, Suzune went into the changing room to remove the SD cards from the cameras to foil the operation. Kiyotaka explains to Suzune that he used her rather than convince his classmates not to do it because of the possibility that they would have done this behind his back. Kiyotaka then asks if she had fun with others, but she replies she didn't come to have fun with anyone. This causes Kiyotaka to push her into the pool, and she does the same to him in return, but this act makes the other students start splashing her, thinking that it was a game to her dismay. Later that night, Kiyotaka sends Suzune an email which is a picture of her with the other students as she remarks on how she get along fine without others but smiles at the gesture. For a class trip, all the first-year students are taken on a luxurious cruise ship. During a cruise play, Ayanokoji finds out from Chabashira that an unknown man had contacted the school asking for him to be expelled. Chabashira then offers to cover for him, though only if he will start working to reach class, but he immediately refuses and tries to leave however. She warns him that if he doesn't comply, he will be expelled and stripped of his freedom. Suspecting that she may be manipulating him, he grabs her by the collar telling her she is making a mistake in trying to use him. Chabashira is unfazed by this and casually tells him her own life is filled with regret as he releases her. He goes to the bow of the ship and contemplates his fate at the school and whether he should reveal his capabilities. The next day, Ayanokoji hangs out with Ken Sudo and his friends who do a series of events such as Ike asking to address Kushida by her first name before they go to lunch. When Yahiko Tatsuka, a student of class A, insults them, he is threatened by Sudo, but the brawl is stopped by Kohei Katsuragi, representative of class A, who reprimands both sides for the behavior. Very soon, Ayanokoji meets with Suzune to discuss the trip's destination and purpose. Ayanokoji reveals that the school is taking them to a boarding house on an island owned by the school where they suspect an ulterior motive. Suzune is then approached by Ryuen about the security camera setup and tries to manipulate her. Another student from Class C, Ibuki, tries to confront Ryuen about something, but is violently rebuffed by Albert. Suzune remarks that Class C could be on the verge of collapsing from the inside. Sakayanagi is seen plotting in the background while trying to investigate some students. Later, Sakura is shown practicing on how to speak to Ayanokoji, to ask him out on a date, though she stumbles. However, when Ayanokoji appears, she suddenly changes her mind and asks for his help in socializing with their classmates instead and is happy when he says he'll help, which causes her to grab his hand out of joy. When Kushida appears and sees them together, Sakura gets embarrassed and flustered. As she then leaves, Kushida and Ayanokoji then talk as he recalls her violent personality and tries to leave but is stopped by Kushida when she reverts to her darker personality. She tells him that she could sense his wariness of her, which he confirms. She then switches back to her cheerful personality and confesses that she feels lonely when left alone. The next day, the teachers inform all students the real reason behind the trip. They are required to take a survival test on a deserted island for a week. Class 1D review the resources they have and are provided with so they can plan for survival and point hunting. The group first considers what to spend their S points on so it can serve for the long term and efficient enough for a good boost in class points, as the S points are transferred over after the test. The group then looks over what actions and events lose and gain points. A debate ensues, proving the test to be more complicated than expected to Suzune Horikita. The group walks through the forest to search for landmarks, though the three idiots of D class depart from the group as their own for the same objective. Stopping for a moment to discuss the issue from earlier, they decide to disregard the issue for now and focus on finding an area to base a campsite. Various hands are raised as a sign of offering assistance for such an objective. The 9 volunteers split into groups of 3 and set off. Rokisu Konji conducts his acrobatics throughout the forest, outpacing Kiyotaka Ayanokoji and Eri Sakura enough to vanish from sight and sound. The two alone find a path that leads to a cave. The two conclude that it is one of the island's landmark locations mentioned during a lecture by S.A. Chabashira. which offer 1 bonus point only if the possession is declared by the class leader. What is also mentioned is the bonus points given cannot be used until after the test on the island, and more or fewer bonus points can be accumulated when a team identifies another's class leader correctly or not, earning or losing 50 points. Thinking of this makes Kiyotaka hide with Eri when Kohei Katsuragi and Yahiko Tatsuka exit the cave. Skeptical of his current surroundings, he tends to his suspicions by searching the bushes. Relieved to see nothing, the two departs, luring Kiyotaka and Eri out of hiding, as the latter is seen heavily blushing and is squirming on the ground from the experience. Kiyotaka and Eri look around the cave, and afterward, Kiyotaka reports back to Suzune their findings. Ken Sudo, Kanji Ike, and Haruki Yamachi notify the members of Class 1D a river with clear water is close by and can have a campsite next to it. The group discusses how to possess the site with no issues. They decide to cover the leader, who is chosen to be Suzune when the site is being claimed every 8 hours. The group then questions the safety of the river, but Kanji supports the purity of the river because of his experience in camping trips. The group begins to build, and Kiyotaka, Haruki Yamachi, and Eri look for resources until they stumble upon a wounded Mio Ibuki. The trio invites her back to the campsite to be tended, to Mio's reluctance. Kanji sets up a campfire to light the impending night to much applause by the group. The group then discusses how they will spend their S-points and predict how much they will have in the end. The group celebrates their accomplishments on their first day with a feast of natural fruits and bearings. The group discusses with Suzune on what to do with Mio, a Class 1C student. Kikayo Kushida comes over to give Mio some fruit, to the latter's surprise in her trust and care for who is supposed to be her enemy. Suddenly, Ken screams Rokusuke's name in anger to much distress among the group and comments about Rokusuke's selfishness. According to Teruhiko Yukimura, Rokusuke was apparently not feeling well and went back to the boat, which would mean the class would lose 30 points. Rokusuke is then seen climbing the anchor chain of the ship and conducting himself to the beautiful moon and clear night sky. Ayanokoji and Suzune go on a reconnaissance to see what the situation is at the other camps. Class B's camp is set up near a waterfall and operates much like Class D's camp, but at a better location. Class A's camp is in a cave that is heavily guarded as Suzune attempts to take a peek. But she is turned away when Kohei summons his security force and warns her that her actions might start a war. Class C's camp is on a beach where under Ryuen's leadership, all of the points are spent and the classmates treat this test like a vacation. Ryuen did this knowing that they will not be penalized if they had spent all of their test points beforehand. As such, Ryuen punished Mio for being disobedient and critical of his leadership. On the night of the third day, somebody breaks into the girls' tent at the Class D camp and searches Mio's bag for her phone. On the fourth day, Class D does more reconnaissance to find out who the class leaders are. Ayanokoji and Sakura meet Ikenos at Class C's camp only to find out that everybody except Ibuki had withdrawn from the test. On the fifth day, Kei Karuozawa finds out that her underwear was stolen. Class D conducts a bag search, and Yamachi finds it in Ike's bag. Ayanokoji takes it, and a pat-down search is conducted with Yosuke searching him. Yosuke reports that he does not have it, and he decides to take the underwear knowing that his reputation would be damaged the least for being the culprit because Kei is his girlfriend. In response to the underwear theft incident, trust within D class erodes and the girls of class decide to separate the boys and girls camps. The girls suggest Yosuke Harada keep watch on the boys, asks him to help them move their tent, while Suzune notes that he is a boy as well and needs someone to watch him too. The girls note on who since many of the boys are lecherous, but Suzune nominates Kiyotaka as he doesn't appear to have the same tendencies as the other boys. The class girls agree with her because he doesn't cause problems since he isn't very prominent. While Kiyotaka and Harada are putting up the tent, Kiyotaka bemoans how he was selected as a last resort as Harada tries to lift his spirits before he is called to help a girl with something, leaving Kiyotaka. As Kiyotaka finishes the tent, Mio Ibuki approaches him asking for his opinion about who the underwear thief is and states since Ken Sudo suspects her, then he must suspect her as well since she's an outsider, but he surprises her by stating he does trust her, causing her to blush and nervously thank him for his belief. That night, Suzune, Horikita, and Kiyotaka sit by a campfire, and Kiyotaka notices that Suzune has been sick during the entire test. Suzune had been resting in her room during the cruise and is determined to tough it out. On the next day, D class gathers food in advance of a rainstorm. While fishing in the river, Kiyotaka asks Suzune to show him her leader card in order to confirm whether the card Kohei Katsuragi was holding is real, and he is still unsure after seeing it. As they talk, Kikayo tells Mio and Haruki Yamachi that the two appear close. Then Yamachi approaches Suzune and puts mud on her hair to get a reaction from Ayanokoji, but this prompts Suzune to throw him to the ground. While Suzune goes off to wash the mud off her hair in a nearby waterfall, somebody steals her leader card and she secretly lets Kiyotaka know about it. Shortly afterwards, somebody starts a fire at camp, burning the survival test manual, leading to even more trust problems within D class. Mio uses this as opportunity to sneak away from the camp. Suspecting that this was Mio's doing because she's an outsider, Suzune and other D class students search for her. Suzune finds out that Mio stole the card. Mio attacks Suzune despite the rules prohibiting violence against students from other classes, knowing that as long as nobody notices that she can get away with it. Weakened by her illness, Suzune is easily defeated by Mio, who brings the card to a student that requested the key card. Mio Ibuki notifies Kohei through a ham radio that she has secured Suzune's leader card as Class A and Class C were revealed to be working together. Kiyotaka finds Suzune and takes her to a cave where she wakes up, and he explains what happens to her. With Suzune's illness getting worse, Kiyotaka asks her to withdraw from the test. But Suzune refuses that and says that losing the card was her fault and it was because she didn't have any friends. Then Suzune faints due to tiredness and Kiyotaka carries her to the teacher's camp where Suzune drops out. On the final day, the students clean up their campground and the classes guess the leaders, with Class B opting not to make any guesses. Kiyotaka then gives a sulking Yosuke a list of the other class leaders and the latter puts down the names on the list. At the assembly, Kakeru reveals that he secretly forged a pact with Kohei to transfer 200 test points worth of materials to Class A, and will get either the leader card or a photo of it. Class C quickly spent the remaining 100 points, and everybody except for Kakeru, Mio, and Satoru, who was assigned to spy on Class B, withdrew from the test. Class C would then guess the leaders: Yahiko Tatsuka for Class A, Chihiro Shiranami for Class B, and Suzune Horikita for Class D. The results are revealed, and the winner is Class D with 225 points, followed by Class B with 140 points, Class A with 120 points, and Class C with 0 points. The students return to the cruise ship, where Arisu Sakayanagi reveals that things went according to plan in making everybody mistrust Kohei to weaken his leverage over the class, as her ally Masayoshi Hashimoto secretly outed Class A's leader to Kakeru. Watching from the ship, Suzune is very surprised with the survival test's results and wonders how it occurred. Suzune catches up to and questions Kiyotaka, who explains that he intentionally led Mio to stealing the card, and he had Suzune withdraw so that he could make himself the leader, ensuring that Class A and Class C incorrectly guessed her as the leader. As for guessing the other leaders, he reveals that he only saw the backside of Kohei's card, and knowing how cautious he was if he sensed he was being watched, Kiyotaka deduced that Yahiko was really Class A's leader. He was also aware that Kakeru had not withdrawn, leading him to guessing him as Class C's leader, as he saw him with the same radio Mio was holding. Not wanting to jeopardize Class D's alliance with Class B, Kiyotaka opted not to find Class B's leader, as he knew the other spy Kanda would do so. Suzune is in awe at his machinations and tries to question him on what drives him if he doesn't want to ascend to a higher class, but as she tries to get the answer, It turned out Kiyotaka made it appear that she was the one responsible for Class D's victory in order to have others put their trust in her. As the class thanked the nervous Suzune, Kikayo approaches Kiyotaka and reveals she hates Suzune because she has no hidden side. She soon asks him if he would trust Suzune or her, to which Kiyotaka does not reply as she calls him mean for his vague answer. Kiyotaka soon gets a text from his teacher to meet in the ship's theater to talk. On the cruise, Hanami goes over her high points just as Ryuji Kanzaki appears and they talk about the survival test. Hanami questions over what they were told about points and how they could decide on what to do with them. Elsewhere, Kakeru reveals that the main motivation for the alliance with Class A's so that the students would sign a contract to receive 20,000 points from each student every month until graduation. Kohei also receives a hard review from his peers for his alliance with Class C, and it turns out that Arisu Sakayanagi had one of her followers sabotage Kohei's plan. Much later, Kiyotaka meets with Sei Chabashira, who compliments his actions as he demands to know who was it that wanted him expelled as he won't play games without proof. Sei reveals she was aware of his past, which is proof enough as she starts to compare Kiyotaka to Ikaris. She soon states it was his father who requested he be expelled, though the latter said Kiyotaka would leave on his own accord. Sei soon asks him on what he plans to do now, to which vaguely answers as she laughs at his response. Suzune confronts him once more as he calmly states she needed allies and noticed she finally changed. After he confirms he did everything to help her, she gets flustered and blushed before begrudgingly thanking him as she stated she will see him as an ally, though she warns Kiyotaka not to get too friendly with her as all she wants is to get to Class A. While she goes on, Kiyotaka internally notes that he doesn't acknowledge her, Kikayo, and Yosuke as his allies, but merely pawns in helping him win. As it turns out, Kiyotaka's time in the White Room has made him more than willing to do anything to accomplish that goal, even use people for that purpose, believing that all of humanity are nothing but tools. He ends his monologue by stating that all that matters is him winning in the end. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.